Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Tim Matthews, with my co host, Mr. Jake, the Powerful Man Peterson.
What's going on, Tim? How's it going?
Doing great. Sounds like a wrestler, doesn't it? Jake, the Powerful Man Peterson.
That's me in an old life. I've moved on since
Yeah,
my days.
I love it. So, for you guys that don't know, Jake is one of our amazing members of the team. Helps God, he just guides men in such an amazing, beautiful way. He's been through the activation method, been through the alpha reset, just an overall solid guy and great guy with a huge heart. So I'm very grateful and appreciative of you and the work that you do with the men in the movements. Thank you.
You bet, Tim. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah, I mean it. Okay, so you had a great topic you wanted to talk about. Well, we were actually messaging in one of the internal team channels, and I said, let's do a podcast on that because I thought it was great and the listeners would really benefit from hearing about it. So I want to ask you a question that kind of leads into this. So we've obviously all had big moments in our life, right? Where typically there has been a leap of faith that we have taken, and it's been scary as hell. And we've not always known how it was going to work out, but we've just known that something has had to change. And this step, just the next step, has felt like the next best thing to do. Can you relate to that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely, Tim. So one of the big things for me, kind of what we were talking about and kind of messaging back and forth is getting outside your comfort zone. It's scary as hell, right? But the benefits that you can get from that are super rewarding, right? You can go to new places, and we're all kind of going from this place where we're either like frustrated or we don't want to be where we're at when we want to go somewhere else. But sometimes that takes a leap of faith, like jumping out of an airplane. It's scary as hell, but it's a fun ride on the way down. So that's been kind of a mantra that I've overlaid on top of my life since I was pretty young, probably all the way going back to like high school even.
Wow, I'm jealous. Yeah, definitely. I'd like to say it's a mantra that I lived by. I think I had to train myself. I think for so long on the surface, I was kidding myself, making it look like I was operating on the edge of my comfort zone. But in hindsight, I think I was trying to stay comfortable and I was avoiding doing the things that I knew I really needed to do that were going to move the needle. Like, for example, for me, one of the times my life really began to shift, obviously, it was when I started to uncover the reasons why I was craving comfort, really. And I would never have admitted this back then. If you'd have told me, Tim, you're craving comfort, I would have said, what? Can't you see the business I'm building? Can't you see the way I'm working out? Anyway, I'd reel off some things, but even within those parameters, in hindsight, yeah, I was craving comfort. And when I began to do the work on myself to realize why I was craving comfort, one of the first things I did was invest in myself. And I knew I needed to invest in myself for a long time, but it was the one thing I wasn't willing to do yet. And it was scary as hell when I did it. It was a 5-figure investment. I didn't have all the cash at that moment in time, not to just put down in one lump sum. I was recovering from a tough period in my life, quite honestly.
Yeah.
But I could make it work. I could get going with it. And it just felt like the right thing to do. And I was compelled to do it. And that was the start of a real turning point in my life.
Yeah.
And I think that was about maybe 10 years ago. Yeah, about 10 years ago. But it was, looking back, one of the best decisions I ever made, one of the scariest decisions I ever made. But I know for you, you've been doing it since your teens, not investing in yourself, but getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. And I really like what you said there about just being compelled, right? There's sometimes there's just something inside of you that feels like it's like, man, this could be exciting. It's scary, but it's exciting. And that thing kind of pulls you and you're just like, there's a little bit of like wonder around like what is that thing that I could have if I just were able to make the leap, and I like the way that you put that, just compelled. Because that's really going back to like what I said in high school. When I was 15, this is going all the way back, is when Let me go even further back. I grew up in a small town. The town that I grew up in had 350 people, very rural town in Nebraska. I had 20 people
Wow.
in the class, but I always felt like a little bit
Wow.
different. Imagine standing out from, I just felt a little bit different. Like my world was going to be bigger than this, little town in Nebraska, and I was always like drawn to something else, traveling or something more. So I was 15 the day that I saw a flyer for an foreign exchange student program. So I took that flyer and then I walked directly home and I told my mom at the time, I'm like, Mom, I want to do this. I'm going to go be a foreign exchange student and live in. At the time, it was
Wow.
really, I really loved Spain. I was speaking or Spanish. And I was speaking. I loved it. I was like, man, I want to go live in Spain. And so I told my mom, and she's like, well, we don't have the money to do that. Can we make it work? And so we said, we just decided to do it. We figured it out. Didn't have the money, but then I went and spent a year in Argentina. Best year of my life. One of the biggest things that I ever
Wow.
did was just taking that leap of faith. And I was scared. And when I got there, I was homesick, all that stuff, and it was scary and tough and all that stuff. But because I worked through that at a young age, it kind of gave me this zest for life. Like I can do hard things and get through them. So then when I was 17, my brother was looking to join the military. A recruiter came to our house and I kind of listened in. I had no plans of joining the military. But I listened to the guy and he's like, travel the world, see different countries. And by the end of that conversation, like an hour long conversation with my brother and my parents, I'm like, can I go too? And they're like, well,
Wow.
yeah, you've got to graduate, but sure, show up. So my brother and I joined the Navy the same day, right? Just more of just
Wow.
jumping way out, just jumping out of an airplane with no parachute, honestly. So, and it was things like that that got me to feel comfortable making hard decisions and just not being held back by the fear of that. And that kind of led up to some more decisions, bigger decisions, kind of down the road where I got kind of started to invest in coaching and stuff like that. So
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, the way that one of the lessons that's really served me as a couple over the period since I really started to be real with myself about how uncomfortable I was willing to get. Because obviously everyone has a different risk tolerance, right? Which can be an excuse and also a major strength as well. When you become aware of it and you use it to your advantage, because it's very, I don't know whether this is obvious. I mean, it sounds obvious, but I don't know how many people actually do it. Go through the idea of looking at the worst case versus the best case,
mm,
right? So for you, for example, joining the military, I guess the best case, and I'll let you talk of it in a minute. I guess the best case was, hey, I get to travel, I get to meet new people, I get to work out, I get to be in an environment where I'm going to grow, I get to, compared to the town you're in, worst case, well, if I stay here, I'm going to, well, I don't know what the worst case would have been.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that's really a great way to look at it, right? Really look at all the pros and the cons of doing what you're doing. So, we kind of layer that into, well, like a coaching program, for example. The first coaching program I ever got into, pretty significant investment as well, especially for me having never, invested at that level before. But it was like I knew that I couldn't stay where I was anymore. I was frustrated with the level of income that I was at and the fulfillment that I was, having around my life. And so, I'm kind of thinking about that. Like, okay, what do I stand to gain out of this thing? And as the business owners that we talk to, they're always thinking in terms of like return on investment,
Mhm.
So it's like the best case scenario. I come in here, I do exactly what they say. I soak up all the training and I actually do, just do all the things that they're talking about. Well, then I get the skills and the character traits and all these things. That's the best
Mm.
case scenario. And then I get kind of what was promised, being able to elevate my income and have a better, well-rounded mindset. And the thing about this is like, it's scary to invest at that level, but the worst case is, these guys take my money and they run off to Vegas and bet it all on black, right? That's the absolute worst thing that could happen. Right? But it's just like, what, even though that was, what, $8,000 investment for me, it was like, I can make that money back. We can all make a buck doing anything if we really needed to. So that's absolutely the worst thing that could have happened. You know what I mean? And so, for me, it was just like, okay, let's take this leap, and I jumped into my very first coaching program and I put in the work. There's people in that program that maybe didn't succeed, but I was putting down the money. I was going to succeed. It's like, if I'm looking at that and I say, look, I'm seeing guys get results. And if anybody can do it, then why the hell can I? You know
Yep.
what I mean? I'm going to actually put in the work on this thing. So it was kind of like that for me. And again, no, economy goes up and down. We've got COVID 2, monkeypox, and everything like this. But nobody can ever take those skills away from me that I learned inside that program. I get to carry those with me, for the rest of my life, and that's good enough for me.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. That's the intangible, right? It's an intangible ROI. Because looking back to when I was kind of comfortable, in many respects, the one area I was avoiding growing in was myself. Now I was investing in business, and I would invest in business because I guess it kind of gave a tangible ROI, right? Okay, so if I invest in this, how many sales does it need to produce in order to get a return? It was very easy, right?
Mm.
Whereas doing the work on myself to uncover and shift my mindset and to learn strategies and tools that were going to up level my life, in a lot of respects, it was kind of intangible at the time. And I didn't know what was available to me. But you make a fantastic point. When you actually are able to be in that environment where you make a significant investment in yourself, because I'm sure, you and I are similar, and you probably dabbled with a few investments for making this big one. Maybe you invested a few $100s here in a course, a few
Yep.
$100s there in a course. And there's a great saying, right? When you pay attention. And when I used to invest a few $100s in courses here and there, honestly, I wouldn't even go through them all. They didn't grab my attention enough.
I gotta
I
stop you. I gotta stop you and tell you that's so true because I invested. It was like maybe like $300-400 in a program last year, and I got in. I went through some of the modules, and the thing came around again to pay my annual thing for this. And I was like, crap! I didn't even realize I didn't do the. I did. I looked at the training one time, and now they're charging me $300-400 again this year because I absolutely forgot about it. It wasn't that important to me.
Because you
So
can,
you're
right?
exactly right. This just happened
Yeah,
last week.
you can, right? You
Yeah.
can, because you just don't value it as much. It's
Mhm.
like it's like getting a watch, right? If you get a watch that is like I'm just going to use the word Casio, and that isn't against anyone that has a Casio. It's the first one that came to mind. In fact, I'll switch it. I'll use this performance watch that I've got on. So this was about $1,000, right? I could have bought this one, or I could have bought a lower end one at a few $100s, right? A couple of $100s. Um, the cheaper one, would I really be bothered if I didn't use it? If I just put it away in a drawer, or if I bashed it up, or if I wouldn't really care. I probably wouldn't even value it, and I probably wouldn't even use it. And honestly, the data that it provided me with would nowhere near be as in depth as the data this provides me with. The feedback I get from this versus the feedback I would have got from that, two completely different levels.
Yep.
Because the level of investment, yes, it costs more money. And there's a reason why things often cost more money. There's a reason why there's, services out there that have a certain type of person in there, right? So for me, when I used to invest in things that were a few $100s, not only did I not really do them, but when I jumped into the communities, and this isn't against any of the people in there was so many people in there with a victim mindset.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to hang out in there. I just didn't want to be there. It brought me down more than built me up.
Mm.
Whereas when I actually took my growth seriously and realized that there's a far bigger ROI available than the amount of dollars I can get back from a sale, and I actually took that seriously, and to your point, realized, hang on a minute, I can build my character and my mindset to a level that nobody can ever take away from me. It doesn't matter what happens in the markets. It doesn't matter what happens in the economy. I'm going to learn things that allow me to be able to level up. And this is why people who lose, millionaires, billionaires who lose cash, make it back within a few years, because they have the character, they have the mindset, they have the skill set. It's the same thing in a relationship. We see all the time with the guys in activation method, right? They develop skill sets to shift their relationship in a way that no one can ever take them away from them. And whether they transform their current relationship or they choose to leave that relationship and get into a new relationship, either way, they shift their character and their understanding of their wife, and their relationship is never the same again.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this concept, and I'll kind of do a little plug for Alex Hormozy. Not that he needs it, but amazing guy, amazing, brilliant minded business and mindset. So I follow a lot of what he says, and one really a brilliant idea that I learned from him middle of last year, I think it was, is this idea of a success ladder, right? Think about a ladder, and you're trying to grow, and let's just say this is business, right? You're trying to grow your business. You can only climb as high as the rungs on the ladder, right? Or the poles that make up the sides. It's really made up of three things, right? You've got your character traits on one side, which would be like drive and discipline, not being a procrastinator like I used to be. things like that. Character traits. On the other side would be like your beliefs, like limiting beliefs or beliefs about yourself or the world or other things, right? That would maybe limit you. You can only climb as high as your ladder is. And then in the middle, the rungs are made up of your skill set, and so if you want to climb higher, you've got to in some way grow those skills and your mindset and your character traits. And for so many people, we kind of stop, kind of growing maybe after high school. So many people, so much of the world will, and they get into comfortability and they never continue to grow. Most of the guys we work with, they're lifelong learners, and so they continue to grow. But if you wanted to grow your ladder taller, how do you do that? You can get it from experience. You can borrow experience from others, or you can kind of, pay somebody to teach you that thing. If it's your business, you can have somebody teach you how to do marketing or teach you how to build a sales culture or teach your leadership skills. You know what I mean? Or go through a program like 75 hard that would like just really just like ramp up your discipline, stuff like that. It's one that I went through. And so you get to think about, okay, why is that important? Because we're all kind of trying to get to where we want to go in a short amount of time, not a long amount of time, right? We'd rather not spend 30 years growing a business if we can do it in 3. It's great. And so one of the ideas and the concept that Alex has is like, if I'm trying to grow my business to $1 million a year in revenue, and currently I'm only at $100,000, look at the math. It's $900,000 difference, just easy math. And that's kind of the expense that you pay as an ignorance tax for not knowing how to grow your business to $1 million a year. So how many more years do you want to pay the ignorance tax until you get there? Maybe next year it's $200,000. You're still paying $800,000 because you don't know how to do $1 million yet. And so it's just like, now you've got to get around people that can maybe show you that, right? Help you avoid, the pitfalls that you might fall into otherwise in business. So you can kind of skirt around those and continue your path in a straight line. And then maybe that person teaches you some skills and things to build a bridge over the next pitfall as you go out and do it on your own. I think that's a powerful thing. And I just kind of love both those concepts.
I do. It's a great point. And the ignorance tax is true for the men in the relationship too, right? Let's say you want to be in a position in your relationship where you're walking in through the door and your wife is excited to see you. She runs up to you, wraps her arms around you, and she's initiating sex with you. And I say that so easily because actually some guys were sending me messages today upon their return from the Alpha Reset. Some of the results that have been happening when they've been returning home have just been incredible. And they are some of them I just mentioned. So let's say that's where you can be. It's equivalent to the financial goal in business. But right now, instead of that, you're walking into the door and your wife doesn't even really recognize that you're home. Dinner has been eaten. Yours may be left in the oven. She's on her iPad. She doesn't look up from her iPad when you walk in through the door. You end up eating on your own, going to bed at different times, and you wake up just to do it all again. There's an ignorance tax there as well. And I think what trips a lot of men up is that they can't attach a figure to it, like the $900,000 gap. They can't attach a figure to it, partly because they don't know what's possible, because a relationship has become so stagnant, stale, and sometimes a bit toxic. They think it's so out of their control because they've tried maybe marriage counseling or therapy, or they've joined, read a book or invested a few $100s, but they've never really got to the root of the reasons why things haven't changed for them in their marriage. Because the reality is, to your point, the beliefs, the character traits, and the skills, that ladder hasn't grown. But the truth is, there's an opportunity, and we see this time and time again, to fix your marriage without talking about it, even if you're on the brink of divorce. We see it time and time again. It only takes one person in a relationship to dance to a different tune. But you got to be willing to get out of your comfort zone. You just do. You got to be willing to invest in yourself and your own personal growth as readily as you'd invest in a piece of equipment for your business, or a new member of staff in your business, or marketing in your business. Because what is the point investing so much in your business to make so much more money if you're just going to give half of it away if you end up getting divorced? And the flip side of this that we see is when guys get uncomfortable and they choose to invest in the personal growth and they shift things in the marriage, well, guess what? Has a direct influence in their business as well, because they go from being foggy-headed, indecisive, drained, not really wanting to push the boat in business. Even when guys say, no, business is good, it's not affecting business. It still is, because they're going into business not feeling very good. Whereas when you go into business, when things are rocking at home, your creativity's high, your inspiration's up, your head's clear, you're making decisions, you just feel great. And we see it all the time. We've had guys that have 3x'd their business whilst cutting their hours by 2/3. Granted, that happened over a longer period than just in the activation method, but still, that's where it started. So, yeah, that ignorance tax does not have to be paid.
And it like the logical argument for this is like we don't have to tell guys that the average wedding in the United States costs $25,000. The average divorce starts at $12,000. You know what I mean? But just people just aren't ready to invest in themselves in this way. But it's not about the money. It's not about that. It's really about like the feelings that guys have and the shifts that they make. Like when I'll give you a couple examples. I'll give you three good ones. Just all of these happened recently. A guy just came into the program this week. I'm sure he's going to hear this podcast here when it releases in a couple months, and he'll have been through the activation method and just completely ramped up his relationship. But a couple of days ago, his wife was considering leaving and getting an apartment, just absolutely leaving because he'd been letting her down so much. He came into the program, invested in himself. To just today, he posted in our general channel where everybody can see, and he says, "My wife knows I'm working on myself. Instead of leaving, she said she wants to stay and see the changes that I'm going to make." Wow. And we were flirting again. They co-own a business together. We were flirting together. We haven't had a day like this in years. So it's that quick when a guy, yeah, I know him too. When a guy just invests in himself and she's been waiting so long for him to step up and do something. I mean, it's like a shock to her system. And she's like, okay, put the brakes on. I don't have to run. We can pause this thing, and then it just takes consistent. We always talk about being the lighthouse. Another guy that came through the program now, he's gone on into the brotherhood. He came through the activation method, really, really frustrated with where he was at in his relationship, kind of carrying around a lot of anger. And he went out, his wife planned this whole thing for him, a birthday celebration. They went out, they sang, they danced, and they loved this, had an amazing, incredible evening. He said he felt like he was 25 again, hadn't done something like that in years. And here's one this one really got me when I talked to, we talk to guys at the end of their program too, and kind of see how they're doing. It always sounds like it's a different person from the time I first talked to them on the breakthrough call. 8 weeks later, I'm talking to them again. It feels like it's a different guy. Like maybe it's their older brother or their dad, just wiser, steadier, stable. And one of the guys I just had a conversation with last week, he said, before I started the activation method, I would go out with my wife. We'd be in a social situation. She would just ignore me. Her friends didn't pay attention to me. I was just a sidebar. It was like I wasn't even there. Wow. And now when we go out together, I am involved. She's all over me and she's talking to me, including me. It's like, man, you can't quantify the feeling that has for a guy and what it can do for their confidence. And the goosebumps.
I love hearing that. Goosebumps.
So
yeah, you can't quantify it. You hit the nail on the head. So Jake, do you have any advice, one takeaway for the men that are listening to this, that are resonating with it, that they could take away right now?
Just one? We don't have time for like 10?
You've already shared a lot.
Okay. So like one piece of advice. Okay. Well, so I kind of started out talking about like just making decisions from like, when I was in high school, kind of just jumping in and going to Argentina, for example. Like, I think my piece of advice would be around that. Because if you recall, that kind of led me up to a series of events. And then one of the biggest ones, the hardest ones I've had to make, honestly, happened recently. If you remember, when I was deciding to go to the Alpha Reset in February, you remember what happened on that deal?
Oh, I remember. Yeah, that was, yep. You just come off the back of an amazing month where you got to help a lot of men change their lives. Yeah. And, it was just time for a bit of an up level and a bit of a change. Just threw it out there I think it was on the Tuesday. The Alpha Reset was starting on the Friday, which meant you had to fly even earlier than that.
Yeah.
And I invited you. And at first, I can't do that. I'm like, well, why not?
Yes.
And you said, yeah, good question, actually. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and honestly, what was going on in my head that was a great question. And it was just like, you know what, why not? That's a great question. But then I started to stack up the reasons. And you probably recall, like the reasons for me were, okay, well, I've never flown to the UK before. I don't know where the hell my passport is. I've got to get a COVID test. That was all going on. I had to like figure all that out, coordinate with Arthur, all these things, all these reasons started stacking up in my head. Looked at plane tickets. Do you know how much it is to fly to the UK tomorrow? about $2,000. You know what I mean? And so I started stacking up all these reasons and then talk to my wife about it, and like, how's that going to go? Cause one of the things that's true of her, she just hates last minute changes. And then the worst thing really of all was, the hardest thing, not the worst thing, but the hardest thing was my daughter Sawyer's 4th birthday that Saturday. I was making the decision not to be there for my little girl's birthday. All of our family was coming to our house. We had to sell, we had this whole thing planned. And then you start thinking, well, what are they going to say when her, Sawyer's dad just left, just to go on this thing that they didn't understand, you know what I mean? So that was the big thing for me. But I said, look, I just started thinking to myself, like, look, what's the best gift that I could give to my daughter and my wife, my other 2 daughters? It's just like, it's the best version of me. It's not the cupcakes and the toys that I was going to get her for her birthday. And so I just had to make that decision. It was kind of like we always say, in the moment of insight, take massive action. And so that's what I would say for guys. If it's something that you feel called to do, that you need to do to level up, just take all those reasons and those things and just kind of set them aside. Really shelf those just for a second, so you can think about, is this the thing that's going to take me to the next level, the place where I need to go? And it's going to suck and it's going to be uncomfortable as hell, but in doing so, you're going to reap rewards that you can't even imagine. It's just going to happen for you.
Well, you've heard it from the man himself, Jake, the powerful man Peterson. Look, living it out. Some of our core values, right? We'll live it out, and you certainly do that. So, brother, it's been amazing to have you on here. Thank you so much. Guys, like Jake said, at the moment of insight, take massive action. Until next time, have an amazing week, and we'll see you again on the Powerful Man Show.